We've got more Anthony Richardson takes, and are the Atlanta Falcons actually doing the right thing at quarterback? We got that and more for you today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase.
We're looking at the New York Giants, and they're playing a quarterback, the NFC West, and its landscape and quarterback development as a whole. I'm assuming tied to Anthony Richardson here as some of the fan-submitted takes that we're reacting to here on Takes on Takes, which is our weekly fan mailbag. Joe, I have something for you, but I want to start with the quarterback development piece first, just because we touched on that on Wednesday, and then it ended up being like a 16-minute thing. So I want to make sure we leave room for that on the front end of the show.
Weekly Huddle coming in with this. The process of playing Anthony Richardson right away, because he only started 13 games in college, was always flawed, and he should have been sitting until this point since last year.
Well, see, doesn't it seem like the league has very emphatically taken the only way you develop is by playing? The vast majority of the league seems to feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you may see some examples of the inverse of that. I know we have a take on Atlanta and Michael Penix, but Jordan Love in Green Bay and the time that he sat as a player who kind of fit some of the same mold for being raw.
Mahomes.
I just think it's really interesting that the league by and large has said you're getting taken high, you're playing. And that's the only way you're going to get better. Isn't that what Chris Ballard said when they drafted Anthony Richardson? And he said at the podium when they sat up there and drafted him, don't expect him to be Superman right away. Sometimes these quarterbacks, it's not till year 3, 4, 5. And he invoked the name Terry Bradshaw and said Terry Bradshaw never would have made it if he played in today's climate. So just, these things take time.
It's with the recent trajectory of how this is coming together, I feel like maybe there will be more of an appetite for teams to be patient and wait.
I think they should be, especially when you consider some of the veteran quarterbacks that have not had success elsewhere, but have taken those lumps, coming to new environments where you kind of know what you're getting and sign yourself up for, and they apply those mistakes.
Yeah, you can't be in the business of drafting a quarterback early to allow them to have their opportunity to fail for them to then become a reasonable quarterback for somebody else. You can't do it.
Nope. I have a question for you. Have you ever heard of the Zodiac GM?
No.
Do me a favor. I want you to look up the Zodiac GM on social media.
You mean on X?
Yeah, on X.
Zodiac GM?
The Zodiac GM.
The Zodiac GM.
So the Zodiac GM, my take is the Zodiac GM is probably the most underrated analysis tool for team success that I have ever seen. They look at the astrology signs of like the major pieces of teams and looks at the synergy of like the personality qualities of zodiac signs. You're going to think it's crazy until they called the Texans last year. Synergy rating between the head coach, the offensive coordinator, and the quarterback, A+. Bobby Slowick, D'Amico Ryans, and CJ Stroud, who's a Libra, of course. Now, I don't know what any of the personality qualities of the astrology signs are.
I can't believe this is a real life conversation we're having right now.
2022, 2023 top 4 offenses had A+ compatible head coach and quarterback synergies. Rita Mahomes, McDermott and Josh Allen, Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, and Dan Campbell and Jared Goff. They called the Texans being good when the Texans were coming off of a bunch of awful years. They looked at the Dolphins and said the synergy of Tyreek Hill and Frank Smith and Mike McDaniel and Tua Tagovailoa, it's an A+ synergy group. And I just, the more you dig into it and the more examples of you see of like, oh my God, there's like no sports analysis here. It's just astrology signs and how they're supposed to be compatible with each other. And the hit rate at it is like, I became very rattled yesterday when I found out just how common it is that it calls out like popular matches.
I don't know what to say. I mean, obviously you spent the time looking into this, and I mean, I'm scrolling as you go through, and don't you feel like there's some selective analysis here where it's like, hey, let's find things that are good that also aligns with whatever.
Who's the best quarterback head coach combo of all time?
I already see
Who
quarterback. It's Reed and Mahomes.
No, of all time.
Montana and Walsh.
Quarterback head coach combination of
Brady and Belichick.
Okay, they're also an A+ on the Zodiac GM.
I don't know, man. I feel like this is very selective analysis. Like, let me take things and apply it to a filter, and if it's good or bad and it tells the right story, I'll tweet it out. Nobody's out here. You'd have to. I'm sure that there are situations where that does line up appropriately and it works out. But
I don't know if you knew this, but the 2 teams with the highest winning percentage since 2020 are teams that have a head coach and quarterback with an A+ synergy rating on the Zodiac GM. So
in the NFL, who are those teams? The Bills and the Chiefs?
Yes.
And so McDermott and Allen have the great Zodiac alignment.
They're an A+ synergy rating, yes. And they had a significant upgrade when they went from what's his name slamming clipboards in the press box to Joe Brady. They upgraded their synergy with their offensive coordinator. And I don't think it's a coincidence that they ran the table there and won the division and now are sitting at 6-2 with Joe Brady's the offensive coordinator because the synergy with the offensive coordinator versus the head coach and the quarterback is better.
I'm sitting here breaking down film, breaking down
you don't need
stats. All I need to know is when the hell these guys were born.
Nope.
And see, that's the only thing that matters. Birthdays, the most important. The right birthdays mixed together is what we need to be good teams. Douglas says the Falcons are ahead of the curve for the current quarterback development cycle by signing Kirk and drafting Penix to develop while the veteran stopgap helps them win games immediately.
I think it was smart to take advantage of the opportunity to be there to get a quarterback. Now, whether you drafted the right quarterback or not is to be determined. And I do think for a team like Atlanta, there is an opportunity cost conversation that you probably could have had. I don't know about being ahead of the curve, but I think we just got done talking about how like it's not a bad thing to sit a quarterback.
What's interesting is like Michael Penix is 25, like not necessarily the prototype quarterback that you would think that has to sit, but I'm more inclined to thinking I was goofy for the way that I responded to the Falcons if it works out with that decision. But I think if they don't have big time success with Kirk, I think we'll always wonder, well, if they did pick a player that could actually help them on the field right now, what could it have been? So I think that's the layer to the conversation. That's interesting. Michael says later round picks, 4th through 7th, are always better used at the trade deadline. The fact that you can get a well-established veteran talent for as cheap as we are seeing this year doesn't make any sense. Johnson over a 5th round pick for any day of the week and twice on Sundays. This has always kind of been the case. So, like, you can always get a player like that for a middle round pick.
And those picks are so easy to
get back.
Replicate.
Yeah.
You can move down like 2 spots in the first round and get a 4th round pick.
Right.
Like late in the first round.
The Bills did it, right? They traded their 3rd round pick for Rasul Douglas. Then they went from 28 to 30 with the Chiefs and got the 3 back.
Right.
I know they gave the Chiefs Tyreek Hill back, but that was,
minor detail.
At least they got Dwayne Carter, all right. Coming up on the other side of it.
Rating, though. What's Blake Carter's synergy rating with the defensive coordinator?
I think we need to look at Keon Coleman's
Bobby Babbage.
Zodiac sign and see if it was the right one versus the other receivers. Obviously, that's how we need to do this.
Well, I know what I'm doing on the break.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. On the other side of it, we're talking NFC West. Is Kyler Murray a top 5 quarterback? A lot of stuff to get into. Be sure to stick with us. There's nothing like being at the stadium for football games, for comedy, for concerts. And if you want to purchase tickets, you got to do that through Game Time. Game Time is the fast and easy way to purchase tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. The app is awesome. It's easy to navigate. They give you flash deals. They give you a seat view so you can kind of see exactly what's going to be the view from your seat. They send the ticket straight to your phone, so you don't have to dig through emails to find them. They specialize in last-minute tickets. So many great incentives for Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby, it's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, or an agonizing overtime game, which is why they've created the Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel, the energy shot made just for super fans like you, the fans who are first in the parking lot and the last to leave. We see you. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you're rooting for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for a big tailgate or ironing your favorite jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. That's why the limited edition Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to help keep you fueled throughout the season. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with a 5 Hour Energy. Available on 5hourenergy.com, shipped nationwide.
I'm happy to report that Josh Allen is Gemini.
Terrific. Don't know what that means.
Geminis are most compatible with other air signs such as Libra and Aquarius, and fire signs such as Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Keon Coleman is a Taurus with a Sagittarius moon.
So, what was Stephon Diggs?
Hold on.
Locked on Zodiac GM. Here we are, baby. Getting into the real stuff.
Also a Sagittarius.
Hey, they had 4 good years, man.
They did. They were compatible until they were not.
You know? Nobody knows why. Nobody knows why.
Okay. The mysteries of life.
Von Tell, here he is. You never know what you're going to get. This is what he's got. This is what he's got. Despite having the most talent in the NFC West at the moment due to San Francisco's injuries, Seattle will end up finishing last in the division.
I think the Rams have more talent than the Seahawks do.
Due to injuries factor in right now.
But the Rams don't have injuries.
They don't? They don't have offensive linemen banged up?
They have offensive line banged up. I still think the Rams are a more talented team, though. They have the better quarterback. I take their wide receiver pair and duo. They're running.
You take everything on the Rams, on the Seahawks defense. Everything.
You would?
Yeah, by a million. Yeah, by a million.
I don't know, man. That front's looking really good. The Rams linebackers are just bad.
So are Seattle's.
They just traded for Ernest Jones.
Okay. 2 limited players that can't play in space and cover. They're just 2 downhill backers and Dotson and Jones. They're 7 deep with dudes on that defensive line for Seattle.
I'm aware of that.
I would take Seattle's roster.
Okay.
But I think what he really wants us to acknowledge is, do we think Seattle finishes last in the NFC West? I don't think they do.
What's their Gemini sign? Or what's their zodiac sign? I want to remind myself what Seattle's remainder of schedule is. If I recall correctly, doesn't it get a little crazy?
I don't know off the top of my head.
All right. They have Rams, 49ers, Cardinals, at Jets, at Cardinals, Packers, Vikings, at Bears, at Rams.
Don't love it.
That's not fun. I might buy this.
I don't think the Seahawks finish last in the division.
Who do you think? Cardinals?
Yeah. I do.
I don't know, dude. They got games against the Patriots and Panthers left.
It's helpful.
They got the Jets, but the Jets at home. Seahawks twice in 3 weeks. I'll take the Cardinals. I'll take the Cardinals ahead of the Seahawks.
All right. Chad, speaking of the Cardinals, Chad says Kyler Murray is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. If the Cardinals continue to add pieces around him, they'll be a force to be reckoned with.
I think they should continue to. I got yelled at for getting a wide receiver because I didn't give him a defensive lineman in my mock draft on Monday.
Cardinals fans are quiet until they don't like your mock draft picks.
It's the same three guys, too.
Right, yeah. Is that who it is?
It's the same 3 guys. I said, well, the good thing the draft is not 1 round long.
Yeah, I've heard you say that before.
And the argument was, well, they're really good at 13 personnel. And my counter was, are they really good at 13 personnel because they have 3 great tight ends? Or are they really good at 13 personnel because they have 1 good wide receiver on the team?
Kyler Murray is not a top 5 NFL quarterback.
Correct. He's not. He put the damn Superman cape on Sunday in the second half. He had some incredible throws in the second half of that game. He's got phenomenal arm talent, and he's obviously super dynamic, and he's removed from the knee injury. So that's great news for them.
Right.
But top 5 is no.
Too much. Jacob says, and credit to Jacob here, he didn't actually say this. I took his question and I made it a statement. So, Jacob, Jameis Winston will pull a Geno Smith type career resurgence. He asked us if he will. Like, nope, it's takes on takes. You have to have a take. We're not here to answer your questions.
Then why'd you put it in the queue?
Because I liked it. I liked what he said. I liked the idea of what he said.
This is your take. This is your take.
Sure. Fine.
Can't you see this?
Can't you see this? Isn't this exactly what we're talking about?
Yeah. Guy has clearly all the talent in the world, but doesn't know how to walk the tightrope and being responsible. And then he matures and grows a little bit and has to sit and observe the game instead of play the game. Yes.
100%. One more here in this block. Josh with a 2-parter.
Will it be with the Browns, though?
That's a great question. I was sitting here. We're going to kind of touch on that in the next segment.
Okay.
I think but because there's a spot that I like, but then it comes up in a take. So,
okay.
Yeah. Josh, a little 2-parter here. We'll do part 1 and then part 2. Do you and Kyle, this is a question, but he's spiking the ball for us, so we'll take his question. Do you and Kyle take pride in knowing you were both stands of the draft good players while Detroit was rebuilding? Must be kind of cool to see an ideology you believe in come to fruition for hashtag our Lions.
Absolutely. I like Jared Goff too. I thought Jared Goff was getting a bum rap out of LA.
Yeah, man. And I think Detroit in so many ways embodies a lot of what you and I have been getting into over the last week or so, where it's like having a legit system in place and plan to develop players and onboard players and like what your identity wants to be and making sure that everybody fits that. And they're very selective with who they bring in, man. And I think it matters. Everyone's rolling in the same direction, and they're a good football team that I think is going to be really good for a long time.
And case in point, I mean, they took this player in large part because of the value, but a player that has had some trouble fitting in there is a player that has all the talent in the world in Jameson Williams.
Yeah.
Right. Who's now obviously rolled up in some more off the field type stuff, but it's kind of been like that since he got drafted. And it's an embodiment of why JMO has all the talent, but is he going to work in Detroit? I don't know that it feels like he is going to work in Detroit.
Right.
And they went with a draft good players by value, and they obviously needed a wide receiver. But it's ironic, out of all of the picks that they've made, one of the most talented players that they picked is one that doesn't look like it's trending towards working out there in Detroit.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't fit so many of the pillars and the guidelines of what they want to be. And I love for Dan Campbell, and you got a chance to see it up close on Hard Knocks, but the fact that they work their players, right? I mean, there's the whole load management, and Dan had the speech about the guys and going pads and going full contact, and you guys got to trust me that I'm going to get you ready to play and I have your best interests at heart. And like the new sports science of how much exertion you have at any given practice, and guys getting rest days all the time. And, I really feel like they're doing a lot of stuff the right way.
Yeah.
And all of that mixed with the ideology of just, we're going to take good players. The positional value of those players be damned is not surprising at all to me to see that come to fruition for guys that are in position to make plays.
And they're guys that fit. They're all guys that fit. And I love what Dan said in his locker room speech that we got a chance to see through the Lions
2 weeks ago.
No, I think it was this week. It was this week. He's like, championship teams don't care who they're playing, right? It doesn't matter who we're playing. You don't have to get up or down for anybody. You have an objective that week and you get it done. And I thought that was a great message coming against a Tennessee team that they were heavy favorites. Bonus take, which is really not for you, Kyle, but it's for me, but I'll entertain it, from Josh. George Strait is the GOAT of country. And here's where I'm at with this. George Strait is a tier 1 country artist of all time. But I think there's 3 knocks against George Strait that I don't think people talk enough about. Number 1, does not write his own songs. Okay. So he's a guy that has had banger after banger, a million number 1 hits, does not write his own songs. And that doesn't sit well with me when you're talking about, okay, this guy, I think there's an authenticity that matters in music. And when it's none of it is actually anything that you wrote, I kind of take a little exception with it. Then I think there's a volume component with George Strait. This guy has put out so many songs. And of course, throughout that sample size, there's going to be bangers. His album cuts are not always that good, right? So I think you have to listen to 20 good songs to get to 1 great songs. And then that last thing about George Strait, I don't think he's a great entertainer. This is a guy gets up there, wears his guitar, strums a couple of notes, then he just rests on his guitar and sings his songs. You know what I mean? I know the songs speak for him, but it's just there's no entertainment value to watching George Strait perform. So there you go. I know Kyle really enjoyed that analysis on George Strait and his status as a tier 1 country artist. All right, coming up on the other side of it, we've got some stuff on the Giants, little Panthers Colts trade idea, all kinds of stuff. So be sure to stick with us. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5. You get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sports app gives you everything you need to place live bets all in the same place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
A tattle take for you.
All right.
Let me clear my throat. Sorry. Dozed off there. Took a little nap. It's from Derek Brown.
Good player.
No, not that Derek Brown.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
This is the Fantasy Pros Derek Brown. He's a fantasy football guy. He sent this tweet 6 minutes ago, and I am so offended that I am seeing it on my screen. I had to share it. Candy corn is the 1.01 of Halloween candy.
It's not. Candy corn's objectively bad, right? Who's it for?
Let me eat some corn syrup and sugar mixed into a tri-dyed kernel.
Kyle, I've known one person that likes candy corn. It was an ex-girlfriend, and makes sense. Makes sense. You know people that like it?
No.
Who's it for? Who's eating
it? It's not even candy.
Right. It's objectively disgusting.
Okay. Candy corn ingredients. What do you think's in it?
Corn syrup and sugar. This is a
sugar, corn syrup, salt, sesame oil, honey, artificial flavor, food colorings, gelatin.
My crunchy wife will not be having that.
No. Can't forget the confectioner's glaze, known as shellac. Yeah. You can shellac those things into the trash as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, but you know what? This guy, this fantasy pro, he knows what he's doing. He's engagement farming, you know? He's going to get all kinds of activity.
I got a shout on the show. I will not read your handle. People want to go find it. They can chastise you for yourself. They can look you up.
The next one comes from Walk It Like I Talk It. The Giants are better off signing/trading for a veteran quarterback instead of drafting a quarterback this offseason. His 2024 class is looking outstanding, and follow that up. The 2024 draft class for the Giants looking outstanding, and following that up with another strong one in 2025. A player like Sam Darnold could help take this team to the playoffs. They
Stan's
already
not
have
coming back to New
cornerstone
York.
players on defense and offense. Well, he's not going back to the Jets.
He's not going back to New York.
This is the Jameis Winston spot.
That media group that kick rocks.
This is the Jameis spot.
With Daboll?
Yeah.
Think he'd survive? Think Daboll will survive this season?
They've already said it. John Mara said it.
Okay. It's October 31st.
No, dude.
See what happens if we
you
go.
Want to talk about the whole thing. Kyle Crabbs. I've listened to you for the last 7 years talk about how the Giants have been 2 and done with every head coach.
Yep.
They're building up a bad reputation. John Mara has been listening to the podcast. He said, you know what, Kyle Crabbs is right. We got to give these guys the confidence, let them know that they're good, and get rid of this conversation.
I'd fire Joe Schoen.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that, but
the talent and Brian Daboll's not responsible for the ultimate talent collection on the roster, but he has nothing to work with.
Who's the quarter? Let's assume that they're going to do what they said they're going to do. Should the Giants be interested in drafting one of these top quarterbacks, or should they be interested in this other Darnold, Winston, whatever group?
All right, how many draft picks do the Giants have next year?
I don't know.
I'm looking it up. In the process of looking it up. They traded their 5 to. They have 2 5s, but one of them went to the Panthers for the Brian Burns trade.
The Bills have their 6 for Boogie Basham. I know that's a big one that you're thinking
the Giants have the Bills 7th as a part of the Boogie Basham trade. It's the pick swap. So they have 2 7s. They have their own 1 through 4. They have a 5. It's a matter of if it's their own or Seattle's as a part of the Leonard Williams trade. Then they have 2 7s. Y'all want to?
He let Xavier McKinney and Saquon Barkley go for nothing.
Right.
That's so stupid. So
who else are you paying? Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence?
Andrew Thomas.
Okay, 3 players. You're paying a quarterback.
Honestly, that's about it. What, Bobby Okereke?
You're paying your middle-class quarterback, or you're paying your quarterback a middle-class contract that has very quickly become a middle-class contract, but you didn't do anything with it to create more cap space because you want to get out of it as soon as possible.
Bad.
Right? Yeah, I would fire Joe Schoen is what I would do. But then, if somebody else comes in, I would sign a veteran, and then I would trade a mid-round pick for somebody else's flop.
So go Levis, Richardson, Bryce Young, I guess. Probably not.
I would go that route.
I like it. Kennedy, I listened to your discussion on the Panthers and Colts benching their round 1 quarterbacks. If these 2 guys are not the answer for the franchise that drafted them, should they be They should be traded at the deadline to the opposite team.
To the opposite team?
Yeah. So a straight up Bryce Young for Anthony Richardson. I'm not doing that if I'm the Colts.
Yeah. No, I'm not interested.
There's a hang up here. There's a difference. Dolphin Stan says, understanding when to sell high on assets or when to move on quickly when acquisitions aren't working out is what separates the well-run organizations from those stuck in mediocre purgatory.
I think the ramifications of giving the wrong players money is one of the more crippling things that you can do as a team, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to miss on investments and have opportunity costs, but when the opportunity cost is then combined with being restricted financially based on a bad financial decision on a contract that you give bad money to. We just got done saying that with Daniel Jones. The Giants' salary cap situation was harder than it needed to be because they didn't want to touch the Daniel Jones contract and restructure it to create more cap space because they want to get out of it. I think this is a fair take. This is what the Patriots did better than anybody with Bill Belichick.
Yeah, 100%.
They did this better than any. They would rather get rid of you a year and a half too soon than get rid of you a year and a half too late.
I also think that being right about your quarterback and like not having a good quarterback, but having the great quarterbacks, that opens up for a lot. That creates a lot of margin for error. Like looking at, of course, the Bucks, the Patriots with Brady. They didn't get everything right. They had Tom Brady. the Chiefs and Brett Veach, they don't get everything right. They miss all the time, but they have Mahomes. Right. And I think that helps. You look at Baltimore with Lamar Jackson. It's like
your margin for error is so much larger with the rest of your personnel decisions because you have that essential piece of it to tether your entire direction for your team to.
So I still think the most important thing for sustained success in the NFL is having that dude at quarterback. But I also think that gives you the margin for error. When you don't have it, then this stuff becomes even bigger.
Right. I agree. Anything else?
That's
it. We're done for the week. Kyle Crabbs, Joe Marino. Appreciate you guys checking out the show. Enjoy all of the football.
What are our zodiac signs? Are we compatible? You and I? I don't know what I am.
What are you?
Do you have a
date of birth?
How do you even look it up? June 2nd. We got to know if we we've been.
You're a Gemini. You're a Gemini. So you're the same as Josh Allen, I believe.
Wow.
And I believe that means you are compatible with fire signs, and I'm a fire sign because I'm an Aries.
Wow.
Makes a lot of sense.
Man.
How's this for some primary qualities of Joe Marino according to your zodiac sign? Playful? Intellectually curious? Yes. Not as much as
I'm intellectually curious.
Not as much as your brother.
Yeah, that guy's insane. Skipping over a bunch of things that don't make sense, I see.
Yeah. Selectively scouting.
Just like the Zodiac GM.
Man. We're out of here. Appreciate you guys checking the show. Enjoy your weekend.